Damjan Krajacic, master of UI UX, building digital products, and newly transitioned into saving lives in healthcare. He's the creative director and lead UX strategist at ActiveColor. Welcome to the Learning with Lowell show. Here's a quick teaser for this episode.
But there's, I think, a lot of room in this industry right now for improvement. Somebody, because of this system, managed to get colonoscopy and they got cancer detected and they got treatment, rather than falling through the cracks.
In this episode, we deeply dive into his work in healthcare, learn UI UX with him, how to get into this field, and more. If you want to see more content like this, subscribe, like, and comment. It all adds up. Let's stay curious and learn more about Damjan Krajacic. What is something you're proud of? It could be professional, personal. It could be something completely random that you're really proud of that you don't get the chance to talk about often.
I'm proud to be involved in a project that's a medical project, a healthcare project with University of Chicago Medical that helps people live, basically, because of the value it provides.
Mm-hmm.
So just that feeling of being a part of something bigger that makes a positive impact on people and helps people is really gratifying for me.
Mm-hmm. What could you expand on that a little bit? What is that project?
All right, so the project started about 5 years ago. We had a chance to partner up with a marketing firm here in LA called Four Faces Marketing, and together with them work with University of Chicago Medical on building a scheduling platform for between clinics and hospitals for colonoscopy.
Mm-hmm.
So the basic premise of the project is that it serves underprivileged communities and people who don't have access to healthcare and don't have insurance. So clinics would set up appointments with people and be able to book colonoscopy appointments with hospitals, with specialty providers who would donate their time. Mm-hmm. So they would get some free slots who would otherwise go to waste. And with those free slots, these patients who would otherwise not have access to care would now be able to get colonoscopies done. And because of this screening capability, literally people's lives are saved because cancer is detected at an early stage rather than letting cancer develop and literally people dying. So the platform itself provides a much better way of doing this. Before, the way clinics and hospitals used to do it is the clinic would call the hospital and say, hey, do you have any free slots? Oh yeah, we might have a slot. When do you have a slot? Oh, we have it at this time. And okay, well, maybe. And then they call the patient and, so you have this back and forth between the two organizations. And what this platform does is it allows the hospitals to create certain specific times that would be allowed for the clinics to book. The clinics can go in, check what's available, schedule it, and then the platform tracks the whole process back and forth. So the initial referral, the procedure itself, the results, everything, like the whole process is tracked through this application. So it streamlines the process, but it also eliminates any potential gaps and fallouts during the process, right? So it's really the kind of like a tool that keeps everything together and makes everything simpler to use. So it started as a research project, so to speak, to show the true value of it, and it's still mainly in Illinois, but there are plans to expand it nationally, so which would be great, because cancer prevention for colorectal health is really important, and it's one of those cancers that is like, if it's detected early, great. If it's detected late, there's not much you can do at that point. So
and it's like you're saying, it's highly treatable when it's gotten early, and it's one of those that we have great tests for figuring it out. It's not like there's some tests where it's like maybe you do, maybe you don't, but this time it was no.
And look, I mean, there are fit tests,
mm-hmm.
And there's Cologuard these days, which is even more accurate and detects cancer at a higher rate. So there are some tests that can be done prior to getting colonoscopy done. Colonoscopy is still the kind of like the golden test to actually do, that's how you truly know. So that's where we started, but then we built out the system even further to expand to be able for the community organizations and clinics to track fit kit distributions. So that's also been added over the last few years. So this is where the care starts, so to speak. And we are now expanding the system even further to really cover the whole spectrum of care, from the initial touch point with the patient, from community outreach and so forth, to getting the test done and getting everything, kind of the whole loop closed. And the system is expanding actually to other specialties as well. We're about to launch Hep B, and it's probably going to go into other care as well.
That's awesome. I think when we first met, you were telling me that you made the transition from kind of, I might be saying this wrong, but like generalized UI UX to more healthcare focused, more impact focused. Was there a tipping point that made that happen? Was this the tipping point? Like you started doing it, it's like this is just so much different than anything else. I'm just curious, like what was the inflection point that made you just switch?
It's really this project.
Yeah,
that's kind of why I singled it out. I mean, it's interesting on many levels. It's interesting on a UX UI level because it's very complex. The logic of the application is very complex. So the flows and the permissions and the user types and the organization types and the whole business process that's taking place is very complicated, which is, kind of like a big Lego puzzle to play with. So it's cool.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it serves a true purpose. It's not a nice application that's fun to use, and if you have it or you don't have it, it's kind of okay, either way. This one actually makes a difference in people's lives, literally.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it came to a point where, okay, do I want to keep doing these cool websites and projects that are fun to do and interactive and cool, or can I do the same and at the same time make a positive change and give something, really truly give something back? So that's where it started shifting for me. Of course, it takes some time to be able to pull that off on an agency side, on a realistic side, and we're getting there. So and I want to keep doing that because I can tell that the extra factor is really the motivation and the mission that inspires me daily.
Yeah, I imagine it makes it easier to jump out of bed when you know that the product of your work means that someone's life will be positively affected by it. Was there ever any pushback? Like, was anyone saying, maybe keep doing the easy thing versus making that tough transition?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, both from me, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
it's like sometimes you think, oh, this is harder. This is harder to do. And there's more risk involved. There's more pressure, definitely, because you need to get it right, and on let's say smaller or less impactful projects, the potential impact or not impact is less critical than in this case. So you feel more responsible when doing this. And then there was some internal pushback from our team because they love doing creative things. Mm-hmm. For me, however, the whole concept of what creative means has been shifting. We can still bring that creative mindset and innovation and bringing something different, a different level of thinking to the medical and to healthcare industry. I really believe that's where, our, let's say, competitive advantage or our strength could be, is precisely the creative aspect. Because a lot of medical interfaces, a lot of medical apps, healthcare related things are not really designed very well. No. Especially legacy systems that hospitals work with. They're, they look like they're from the 90s or.
I mean, 90s is probably being polite. Like some of them look like they, use dial-up from DARPANet or something, or Like you have
Right,
to,
right,
like when every keystroke is converted into Morse code and just like pops out on the other
right.
side. I don't know. Like it looks pretty bad.
So, so there's a lot of room for improvement, um, because there's something about, okay, I have to use this, so I'm going to use it because I have to use it. But then there's also another level of you using a digital interface where it's enjoyable.
Mhm.
And so you want to use it and it's helpful in that way. So
Yeah.
it's a delight to use. Like, oh, okay, this feels good to interact with this interface. And that's where we want to be. That's kind of where I see the creativity really kicking in. And you're starting to see some greatly designed healthcare companies and startups and interfaces. They're definitely coming up, but there's, I think, a lot of room in this industry right now for that to, a lot of room for improvement.
Mhm.
So this industry is kind of like still, going very slow, and it's going to take some time to get there. So, I know University of Chicago Medical appreciates some of these UX UI related aspects that are focusing on the experience really being great, rather than, okay, this just work.
Mhm.
Okay, so we're really trying to make it enjoyable for everybody, from clinics to hospitals to community organizations, for everybody to enjoy using this system, and therefore want to keep using it to do their work.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense because if you're, when you're trying to see a doctor, if you're trying to get screened, let's just look at colonoscopies. Like if it's not intuitive, if it's not easy to do, if it doesn't feel safe, secure, all the things that you need it to be, how easy is that person to be like, well, it's not working, I'm going to step away from this, I'll come back to it. And then maybe they try it again, maybe they don't try it again, and that person could have something really negative happen from it. So, functional is good, but like if it's not intuitive, if it doesn't work well, people
Right.
won't use it. And ultimately that's the real litmus test. Like
Yeah.
people, are they using it? And is it easy to use?
Yeah.
If it is, then like many times more people are going to get help. And then when those people use it, they'll tell their friends like, hey, I just used this thing and I got, this thing and I was all done. And, it was, not a big deal. And it's not as bad as you think. You have to like call someone and do all these other things,
Right.
which coordinating is always obnoxious, just as one example. So I
And look,
definitely see the huge impact of it.
and in our case, I mean, it's not so much to end users, because the patients are not using the system. It's the clinics and the clinic staff and the doctors and so forth. So they're sort of made to use it. But if the system works nicely and they're enjoying the process, they're going to actually use the system versus going back to their old ways of pen and paper.
Yeah.
And in this case, with our system, really, there's so many other valuable points to it. Like, some of the rural clinics don't have EMR systems, don't have medical systems that they use, because it takes a license to be able to use it, and so they don't have enough money to pay and so forth. They actually don't have any digital system. They use pen and paper, Excel spreadsheets and things like that. So this system, in a way, could at least replace part of what they're missing already, in terms of having some kind of a digital record system of this process that they're doing for various kind of specialties. So it has potential to do good in terms of equity of care, in terms of giving something to organizations and clinics who would otherwise not be able to simply afford medical system or some of these digitized solutions.
That makes sense. Yeah, I thought it was for the Gen Pop, but I mean, even if it's just, and not just, because if they're using it and they're being able to step back from pen and paper, which is horrible and very inefficient.
Yeah.
I imagine that they're enjoying it, and then they leave. Hopefully they give you feedback. Maybe too busy to write it or whatever, but hopefully that you've gotten really great feedback from them. So that
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, the greatest feedback was, hearing when that somebody, because of this system, managed to get colonoscopy and they got, cancer detected, and they got treatment, rather than falling through the cracks and, eventually dying early, way too
Yeah.
early because of cancer. So that's like, wow, this is great. This is really helping in some meaningful way. And going back to your original question, that's why this project is so meaningful to me, and really was a tipping point that, okay, I really want to get all in this direction. And the more time passes, even we haven't spoken in 2 months, I've solidified, yes, I want to do this even more. Like every week it's more, it's just growing stronger, this desire to be just doing this. And like I said, we can still be creative and do great things in terms of interfaces, in terms of interaction, in terms of how we go about building things, by doing serious things versus fun websites or fun projects that are on the surface more creative.
Yeah, but then the substance is different.
Yeah, exactly.
So when it comes to UX UI, how does it work? Just on for people listening in, maybe they've only ever seen it, in a job, as they're like looking for jobs, or they just hear about it in the news. What is it really like? I guess like briefly, and then like we'll expand into like larger things.
So UX is user experience, right?
Yeah.
And UI is user interface. So user experience means, how are people gonna go about doing certain things? So what do they need to do, and how are they going to do it? User interface means, how is it going to look like on screen? So the buttons, the interactions, and so forth. But really, when you think about it, user experience is the foundation of what we want to do here. So at the end of the day, it starts with, who are you serving, and what their goals are. So it comes down from user research. It comes down from what the people are and what problems do they have. So with user experience, we will start exactly with that, discovering what the problem is that we're trying to solve and for whom. And in an ideal scenario, you have the ability to do some true testing with people that you are building this for. We do this through surveys. We do this through direct interviews, and we find out who our priority users are, and we prioritize the application for them. So sometimes, when you do a startup, let's say you have great ideas about what you want to do, but it's really your opinion, right? It's like, oh, I think that this would be great. That's awesome. And then the next question is, do people really want this? So you have to be building not for yourself, but for the people that are actually using the system. So let's say with Illinois Colon Cares, with University of Chicago Medical, you're not building for the patient, you're building for the clinic staff or clinic doctors. So that's who you're serving. So you need to find out from them what it is that they need to do, what their processes are. So for example, in this case, you would start with, what are their current processes, and what does that look like? Okay, so we go on a piece of paper, or we grab a phone, we call them. Okay, great. So now that you've learned what it is that they're doing now, you can start to envision how improving their process or doing it differently could benefit them. And once you learn all of that, you put together user flows, which are basically kind of like a map of how this interaction would take place in the digital domain. We then go into wireframing, which is in more detail on how the screens would actually look like, and then eventually into hi-fi wireframes and design and so forth. Then comes the UI part, which is the interfacing and the interactions and the colors, and of course, depending on whether you have a brand or not. So there's a lot of components in this UX UI business. Sometimes, people say UX, UI because it sounds kind of cool, but it's really not that new when you think about it. User experience, one way or another, has been around for centuries. It's just the interface has changed. We didn't have digital interfaces. Okay, so you went into a store, you still have a user experience there from the point you enter to the point you buy something and you get out of the store, or you go to a movie theater. That's a user experience. So what is the problem that we're trying to solve, and how will we go about solving it? So the in some way the way of thinking about it and the methodology isn't much different than it used to be. But when we are dealing with the digital domain, there's an added component of a digital interface. And I think, what has been neglected in the past, and what companies have obviously done very nicely with Apple and Google and so forth, that you're actually enjoying the digital experience. The way you interface with an iPhone, let's say, is so intuitive, it's incredible. So the user experience of it and the way they built the UI is so intuitive and so well thought of and tested and adjusted over the course of the last 10 years or so, that nobody thinks about it anymore. And that's the real joy of the digital experience, when it can be so seamless that it feels natural. It feels like a part of what you're doing. It doesn't make a difference in whether you're using it or a kid is using it. It's always fun to see kids just figure it out. You don't need to tell them anything. I have two kids, 8 and a 12-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. Just whatever. How did you do that? I don't know.
Yeah.
It just comes very natural. But that means the product is built well.
Yeah.
Because if you give them a DVD player, we're like, what? What is that? What do I do with it? So the product development, especially in the digital domain, has really progressed. And when I look at how Google interfaces or Apple's interfaces are built and how well some of those interactions work, that's the creative aspect of what I would like to bring to to the healthcare projects that we're working on. Because they feel so intuitive and good to interact with.
Makes sense. So breaking that down a little bit, when you do the initial discovery interviews, is it all background, like how do they currently do it? Or like, I'm curious, just generally, what are some of the questions or the approaches you get to make sure that you get the information that you need to then discover, the right users and then develop from there?
Yeah, it's a variety of things. I mean, obviously, the business, the stakeholders of the project will have a lot of input on what they think already, and so you might want to test some of those hypotheses. Is this really a feature or a direction that we should be following? And without imposing the question, without saying, "Is this what you would like to do?" Asking the people in a more general way, what do you think would be the best way to do this? So they can give you an open answer as to what really the answer is, not something you're suggesting to them. So suggesting an answer is always the kind of a dark path to go in, because you're going to get answers that are not accurate, because obviously you're telling them the answer. Would you like a red car? Sure. But if you ask them what color would you like, they're probably going to give you all sorts of answers.
Yeah.
So we're trying to hear from them, testing the hypothesis that we have, but also giving them an opportunity to share some thoughts and opinions that are potentially things that we haven't thought of, because you never know what people will come up with. I mean, it's sometimes very surprising. You think what they want, but until you actually hear from them, you can't be sure, and you might get some ideas that are completely new. So we'll leave some room open to that. And in our case, we haven't always had the opportunity to do a lot of research. So even with University of Chicago, we work a lot with the stakeholders of the business, not so much with the clinics directly. So we have some limitations on how much research we can do directly with the end users. So we do our best, asking questions and getting feedback from the people that we're working with.
Makes sense. Is there do you iterate through, like you form hypothesis, test them with questions, and then when you go
Yeah.
back through, you run through them again to see if you've solved them and
Yeah,
validate it?
yeah. I mean, you try to do that as fast as possible. I like to do it without building it. So, if we can just do a quick prototype and test and get feedback, that's always better than spending months developing something that nobody wants. So, if it's possible to develop a prototype and get feedback, that's great. That's the best. So you're not spending any time in development. And then even if you finish a product and you do deploy it, you're going to get feedback, all sorts of feedback. So digital products are never a finished thing. It's always a constant iteration and updating and changing based on what users want or need. And I've seen a lot of products that are overdeveloped. There's so many features. It's like after some time, it's too much. And then maybe you can notice that certain companies started kind of scaling down, like giving people just what they need. Yeah, you can find all these extras, but they're not there in your face, and so it's actually easier for the people. The experience gets better rather than covering everything for everybody, and then you just have a mess of an interface. So I'm seeing that more in today's interfaces. It's like, okay, it's nice, it just gives me what I need. I can still get to all the preferences, settings, all these additional options if I want to. But for 95% of the people using this, they don't even go there. They're just using the basic features, and that's exactly what is needed, in my opinion. I remember back in the day, about 20 years ago or so, when I was just starting out with development, I designed and developed this little metronome, music metronome, because I'm a musician, so I was doodling around with that, and it was super simple. And there were all these other ones out there who were complicated and had all these extra features, and this one was the simplest one of them all, and it's somehow latched on. It still has a few 100,000 users getting to that site a month, who just want to practice with a metronome.
Mhm.
And so, the lesson from very early on was, simple is better, in terms of how you do things. And it's always been kind of a motto, even with creative, crazy websites. There's some things that have to be simple. You have to be able to navigate easily. Like if you can't navigate the website or the application easily, then it's no good. And you remember maybe back in the day where you had all those Flash websites and things were like flying around,
Yeah, I
and
hated those.
you couldn't do anything because you didn't know like where to click,
Mhm.
or even worse, things were moving around, so you
Yeah.
had to hunt them. So those kinds of things, when given the opportunity to do more, a lot of companies did that. And I always gravitated, okay, let's be creative, but the user experience part of it needs to be simple. And so, going back to UX research and testing, and learning from people, you also want to learn about the very essential needs of the user. So let's say, the goal of this project is to give them something, give them like goal A to reach. Okay, so we want to test whether they can get to their goal easily during the prototype. So if we built a simple prototype, that's what we are testing. We make sure that you can get there easily, no frustrations. And if there are any pain points, where are they at which point during the process, so you can keep improving. So that's kind of like a constant iteration, testing, QA, feedback, and it's a cycle of development.
Mhm.
But that's that's the fun part too. You keep building the product and expanding and growing the product.
How do you develop a prototype in UI UX? Are you using like Figma or anything
Yeah, I
in
mean,
particular?
we've used, Sketch and Invention, Figma, Adobe XD,
I
various
mean, is
tools.
there one that you like go to and use a lot of though?
I'm sorry.
What's your go-to tool set?
It used to be Sketch and Invention. Then we switched over to XD for collaboration, and then we are now between XD and Figma mostly.
What I know Figma, I do not know XD. What does XD
XD
do?
is Adobe XD.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I
Yeah,
only use like Photoshop on Adobe.
yeah, yeah.
I've recently learned how to do it and it's really fun.
I mean, look, Adobe is a legacy company, and obviously there's some software there that that other software doesn't even come close to, like Illustrator or Photoshop and things like that. XD is good. They started it a few years ago. They kind of got to it really slowly. Sketch was already there, already took all the market basically, and Adobe took their time, really took their time. But now it's out, they are developing it regularly. And some of our designers like it because it integrates well with Illustrator and Photoshop, obviously. So you can go between the three programs more easily than if you were to work with, let's say, Figma and Illustrator. Now, for medical projects, that doesn't matter because you're not really going to Photoshop and Illustrator to do illustrations or do crazy things. But for more creative projects, some of them that we still do, let's say an Illustrator, XD, and Photoshop combination would probably be easier to work with than having to switch to Figma.
Makes sense. Are there good books
And
or online what sorry?
no, I was just gonna go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I think we clipped out for the connection. Were you gonna say more?
No, I was going to say that you can do prototypes directly in XD. You can do prototypes directly in Figma. And then, there's the handoff part to development that happens in other software like Invision or Avocode or Zeppelin. And, we'll use those as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm imagining either people who are, joining a startup or who have a startup or are just, maybe want to try something new. Are there good articles or YouTube channels in particular you point people at to kind of understand the basis so they can try doing a prototype themselves?
Um, yes, but I would have to look it up now. It doesn't come off the top of my head.
And so when you have the prototype kind of figured out, you'll walk a user through it and say and have them like kind of imagine it to give you the feedback, or
Well, are we on record here, or you're gonna cut it, or you want me to speak more?
oh, I was trying to fill it so I wouldn't have to cut it.
Okay, so let's fill it. All right, now when we have a prototype, there's two ways to go about it. You can send it to people and just hope that they're going to get it and explain certain things to them, or you can guide them. I think probably you can get better results by guiding them and making sure that they truly understand what you need them to do. And then by being there when they're actually using it to see where they get stuck, because sometimes people will use the prototype, they'll get stuck, they'll eventually get through it, but they don't tell you about it later. So observing when somebody's actually doing it is really, really good because you can see how it's being used. And you can see those frustrations right there. Okay, somebody's trying to click in 5 different places to go to the next screen. That's a problem.
Yeah.
Right there. Even if they need to click 3 times or 2 times, it should be like super clear where is the next step. And it's, let's say you use some interface next time, you can kind of start paying attention after a while to, what, this was really smooth. like so effortless to get me from point A to point Z, or I had to like, where do I, what is this? Where do I go? And that's where you can realize, even with the like original Amazon website, I never found Amazon particularly like well designed, but they kept the same thing and just changing a little bit over the course of time to improve, to not change what people are used to already. But the initial UI wasn't very intuitive. So, looking at the screen and testing and making sure you see people and where they get stuck, so that you can kind of eliminate those pain points. That's really where where it's worth spending the time on. Let me see. I'm still looking this up.
I think Figma has tutorials, but that's not as much fun if there's an article. Or...
You know what I'm looking for? There's I can't remember if it was an award site.
Like top websites every year.
There was a really good resource that just recently came out, and it had really great courses on various things related to UX, UI, design, how to design creative sites, how to go about building things, motion graphics, and so forth. Let me see. This is more on the creative end. Mm-hmm. Yes, this is it. So you would have to, what should I do? Paste a link here for you?
Yeah. And then say it out loud, and then I'll add it to the show notes.
All right. So it's awards.com/academy. So awards is literally an award site for website projects. So, but it's with 3 W's, awwwards.com and /academy. So they have a course section there where you can take for relatively cheap various courses related to design and coding and creative aspects. There's a great site.
They're pretty cheap too. I'm looking at it now. Yeah.
There's something maybe even more useful for people starting out, and for people who have been doing it for a while, and it's called interaction-design.org. And here you can take all sorts of courses, and they focus quite a bit on the UX. So you will get a lot of courses related to the psychology, user research methods, UX, mobile UX, anything really. And this second resource that I shared is more geared towards true user UX design, where the awards one is more geared towards UI, I would say.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so, but I really like the interaction design, program and website, and they have really great courses and very detailed too.
Yeah, the interaction design isn't too expensive. It's like $15 a month, and you can get all access to it. Yeah, that's not bad.
Yeah. No, and
not
really,
for education.
For that kind of money, you're almost getting a college education kind of a thing. That, of course, the difference is you have to be disciplined enough to go through the course, take the course, be involved in it enough to try some of those things. Because one thing is to talk about it and to to read through it. The other one is to actually implement some of those practices, and then you really understand. Oh, okay. Sometimes you ask a question, in research, and you get all sorts of answers that you didn't mean to even ask for. So, rephrasing questions and learning how to go about research is it takes some time. But these two resources, I would like to single them out.
I'm going to check out interaction design, and I'm building something as well as like maybe some people listening know, and so I'm gonna check out one of the courses. And
they're great.
If I build something that's great, I will credit you.
And if not,
if it's not, it's just because it's me. It's my fault.
Okay, just checking.
If it works out, it's like the Elon Musk thing. If everything works, it's the team did it. If it messes up, it's his fault. I think that's fair. All right, sweet. So we have some resources. Uh, then, I guess from taking a step back and looking at kind of like a day in the life, like what does your general like workflow look like? Like, so if someone's thinking, I like being creative, I like doing design, I like what I'm hearing so far,
Mhm.
what, like just kind of like a slice of life. What's it actually like when you're making the
Yeah, I mean,
sausage?
look, for me, it's a little different because I own my design agency, so I wear a lot of different hats. Going from the business side and just managing the agency and then interacting with the clients and leading that side of the conversation. If we're talking just about UX UI, when you get to actually do some of the creative work, um, the good thing is, well, I guess it depends. Is the good thing. If you like talking to people, interacting with people, a UX designer is a good position because in theory, you should be developing and building for others. And that means that you should constantly be talking and exchanging information and getting feedback from other people. So unlike a UI designer who from a UX designer, you would get already a predefined, let's say, user flow, wireframes, this is what we need. This is kind of the structure that we need. And now make me something really pretty and interactive. Okay, so you can kind of go away and do that and not interact with people. But the true job of a UX designer is to learn from people and constantly go back and forth and so enjoying working with people is kind of not a requirement, but if you're going to like your job better if you like working with people.
Yeah.
And if you are a UX UI designer, that means you do both, right? So you will get to work with people and do the research, and then you will get to design it. So for me, I like doing both personally, because it gives me a chance to still feel creative and do some things that can be interactive in a creative way. So I'll try to give myself some pieces of the projects that let me do this still, even though we have designers that can do this probably better. But I try to keep up. So let's say if you're just starting out and want to get into this industry, I personally think it's a very gratifying role, because you get to really build out the product, work with the people to learn from them, build for others, create something that's going to give value at the end of the day, and then help put that into help actually build it, design it. Okay, then it goes to developers to build a functionality, but you have your imprint on how it is. It's kind of like an architect to a house, and you get to really work with people on designing, or with a company or institution on designing this space. So it's a lot of fun, for me at least.
Yeah.
um, and it's something that's, I would say, is a profession that's in need, because there's a lot of digital things taking place, and I don't think we're nowhere close to being done with it. So as the society is digitizing and all the companies are going even more digital, and improving how they do things, you need UX UI designers, and especially UX designers, to really hone down that experience and make it good, because there's still a lot of bad experiences out there, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of room to improve how we do things. And it's the last year, for better or worse, has sped up this process by tenfold, in terms of, oh wow, we need to really get our stuff together, because we need to be competitive in the digital market. So COVID has really forced a lot of companies to start thinking about, okay, am I Am I covered here? Am I, doing what I need to do? And to, in a way, pushed a lot of innovation because of necessity. So, it's going to be an interesting 10 years, I think, in terms of UX, UI, and what people can do. So it's a fun industry to get into. Of course, 10 years down the road, who knows how UI is going to look like. So, even with, let's say, voice activated controls and Internet of Things and all that, you're not necessarily working with a screen anymore as much. So with Alexa or Siri, for example, it's a whole other experience. It's still UX. You're still doing UX. It's just your interface has changed. So maybe 10 years down the road, the role of the UI designer might look a little bit different. If we deal with augmented reality more, with, let's say, I don't know, glasses with AR embedded in it, that's going to be an interesting, an interesting field to build for. Yeah. And then, VR and all that stuff. So there's a lot more, there's many different directions in terms of what kind of UI you're ultimately building. Yeah. So
are there, I check out Beyonce, Bey, Beyonce.
Okay.
I don't know. You know what I'm talking about? It's like they have like designs on it. I'm gonna Google this 1 second. I want to make sure I'm saying the right thing.
You mean the singer, right?
No,
Beyonce?
I am saying the singer. Behance.
Oh, Behance.
Yeah, there you go.
I heard Beyonce. I'm like,
no, I was saying Beyonce. You're totally correct.
No, it's Behance. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm wondering, are there good websites that you use to see what's coming out, like stay on the cutting edge?
I think Awards is a good one. In terms of just websites.
Okay.
There's a lot of creative, cool things there. There's a great company here in LA.
Dribble.
That does cutting edge stuff called Active Theory. You can check them out. They do a lot of odd things, to say the least, with in like live tracking, motion tracking, installations and stuff like that. They're really, really good. In terms of websites, it would be Awards. I think that's really the place to go. Otherwise, for cutting edge things that are outside of the website / app, I don't know. I really don't know, because we don't go there.
Oh, no worries.
We don't go there.
Yeah, go to what you know. So
yeah, the thing is that there's so much out there in terms of what you can do. So in terms of robotics, building tools that you use with motion tracking, motion graphics. So we don't really, it's cool stuff, but our tool set is really being creative on the more traditional, I guess, UI. And then, because we want to go into medical, I want to stick to the medical interfaces that are currently in use. Now, of course, AR and remote robotics and remote surgery and all that stuff is really, really cool. We just haven't gotten there yet. I think with AR, there's a lot of things in medical interfaces that could be really, really beneficial, and that's something I would be interested in getting into the future.
I think similarly to like creating fusions of different subjects, I believe that you use music as a form of inspiration or as a focus in your designing. And I'm just curious, like how does that work? Like I'm learning the violin. It does not sound good, but I enjoy it. So I'm just curious, like how you're and for everyone, you can check out Spotify in the show notes. I was listening to it before the call, and I accidentally made him wait a little bit because I was liking it so much. So it's really good. But I'm just curious, like how does your music impact your work?
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me give you a little context first. I mean, music. I've done music for a long time, and my dad was a musician. He was a guitar player and a teacher, and I started playing guitar, then bass, electric bass when I was a kid. Eventually switched to jazz and playing flute in college because I met a flutist from a Cuban flutist who played charanga and Cuban music, Afro-Cuban music, Latin jazz, and I never heard an instrument sound like that. So I went crazy and I started, picked up this instrument, started playing it. Eventually got my master's in music for Afro-Cuban music, and it's really kind of a passion of mine, along with the digital. And when you do music, it's kind of like your creative mind takes over. The rest shuts down, so to speak, because it's a different mindset, right? You want to be in a space where you sort of lose control. And because I'm an improvising musician, I don't really play classical music. Losing control means you use everything you've learned over the last, whatever, 20, 30, 40 years, and still coming up with something that's new, that you haven't done before, based on on all your experiences that you've had. So you lose control, so you're not inhibiting your ideas, but you're still using your knowledge, obviously, right? So when you get in that frame of mind, the most satisfying outcome is you play a piece of music, or you improvise a melody or a rhythm, or the way you interact with other musicians on stage is you create something new, you create something different, right? So when you go to designing UX, UI, and designing digital interfaces, it would translate to, you get so much in the zone that what you've done before guides you, but does not limit you, right? So you try to come up with ideas that are new and that can improve and build on what you've already done before. So I just like to be reminded of this, this way of thinking when working on anything, really, is that yes, things are done well, the way they are now, but there's always new things that we can do and grow and innovate and build. So for me, the music is really a mindset shift. Sometimes, it's a good thing. Sometimes it's not, because you go too far out, and then you have to come back to a little more structured way, because yes, you can't just create anything in a vacuum, right? You still have to create with the users in mind. So for digital interfaces and for the work that we do, that's something that I always try to keep in mind. I'm not doing this for myself, I'm doing it for other people. So you have to keep checking, is this aspect that you're building on track with who you're building it for and what they need to do. So it's called in UX, it's called a user persona. So after we do all that research that we do, we'll build 1, 2, 3, really 3 user personas, but one is there's one main one. And what user persona means is, let's say it's Jack Smith or Sandy Clark or whatever. You actually give them a name, and you say, okay, they're 30 years old, they live in this city, they like this kind of music, they drive this kind of car or a bike or whatever, and these are the brands that they like. This is what the activities they like, hobbies that they like. So when you're building something, you're constantly having in your mind, hey, would Sandy or Jack like this? Would they be thrilled to use it? Would it be easy for them to use? So unlike with music, where you get to be creative and do whatever the heck you want, because it's an artistic expression, with the UI, you have to constantly go back to who you're doing it for to really build something that's worth building. But the inspiration that comes from music, I think is cool, because it keeps reminding you we can do more and we can always be fresh. I never like to stay still, with tech especially. If you try to do things one way for too long, you fall behind. I mean, especially the last couple of years or so, everything is changing in terms of frameworks, in terms of how you work, how you connect platforms, how things are, work together and so forth. So the learning aspect and the changing aspect and the improvisation is constantly there. So, with the music that I play, which is either jazz or some kind of improvised music, you make up things, all the time. So, and being able to adapt is a part of the game. So let's say you're on stage and you're playing a concert with 3 other people and somebody decides to play something different, right? I don't know how familiar you are with jazz or, with that kind of
I think I
music,
know.
but
I think I know the basics of it. It's kind of like
yeah,
it's like some elements of it is like you could be playing a thing, and when you change it, it's like up to me to like harmonize or find a way to make it work. Like we all kind of
right,
like
right.
we're maybe harmonizing. It might be the word or it might not be the word. Like you can kind of like
It is.
disharmonize to like okay. So it's like a dance with music.
Yeah, yeah. Basically, and it varies in different kinds of jazz, different kinds of music, right? But if somebody let's say starts playing a slightly different rhythm, or instead of playing it on a certain part of the drum set, changes it around, it will affect how everything sounds like. It's up to you then to really react to that and adapt, right? So you're constantly adapting to what's going on around you and how other people are playing, maybe how the audience is responding. If they're all falling asleep, then you might want to change something or not, depending on what the intent of the music is.
Yeah.
But the idea is that music is constantly adapting and changing, and so is the technology. So when I think of the projects that we build, I think them as evolving, constantly changing, constantly adapting projects that they need to be there if they want to remain good and be good and continue to serve people. And you see this, I mean, with the good interfaces, the good companies that like big brands that are out there, they constantly modify gently because they have a large user base that's already used to certain things, so they have to shift a little more carefully, but they are evolving because otherwise they fall behind. So that's the the learning for me from music, and the kind of the mindset that I like to remind myself of when we are thinking about tech and how we go about doing things.
Makes sense, and I think you're in good company in terms of wanting to play some music. Einstein, a little known fact is he actually was really good at playing the violin, and sometimes when he would get stuck, he would actually play the violin to kind of like
Yeah.
he'd just like he'd distract himself, be really creative, and he'd come back and like the creativity of problem solving. People
Yeah.
think math or most people think that creativity is anthem to analysis, when in a reality you have to be creative to figure something out.
Right. Right.
It's like that's just what human is. So I feel like you're in good company in terms of like using music as a form of expression to like figure things out.
I wouldn't compare myself to Einstein
Well,
really,
I did it for
okay.
you. I did it for you, so it works out. I mean, Einstein was so good that he would just walk. He would walk on to Philharmonics and just sit down. He could play. He
Oh,
could
wow.
walk in any place and be that good. But yeah. So the last few questions I have are, and I added one because I think there's a movie I'd recommend to you, which is called Whiplash. I feel like you'd like that movie. I don't know if you've seen
Yeah,
it.
I saw it. Yeah. It's a little extreme, jazz musicians say we don't think of jazz like that, like
Mm,
burning, bleeding hand, to be able to play the instrument. But
yeah.
it was an interesting movie. I guess, yeah, it does require, you have to really have persistence and patience and a lot of grit to do music,
Yeah.
professionally. I do it semi-professionally. I mean, I do concerts that I like and then that I get and that, are a fit. Obviously, I do something else to make a living, but I have a lot of professional musician friends, and it's, it takes a lot to be able to go through what musicians go through on a daily basis, including the lack of appreciation for what musicians do. So, for example, you're a PhD educated musician who spent, 6 hours a day practicing for the last 40 years and can perform this beautiful concerto or play jazz, and you go on stage and you get paid, I don't know, like some crazy little money, especially, jazz musicians, right?
Mhm.
And you would think that society would appreciate them more. And yet, with all of this, they keep doing it. They keep going through it. And because of the love of music and art. And, when I think of Whiplash, it's like, yeah, you have to bleed to make this happen. It's like, okay, a little extreme in how they portrayed it, but it was a fun movie. It was a fun movie to watch.
There was and then I would love to hear your movie recommendations or book recommendations for people, but it could be you anyway. But there's a story of a person playing the cello on a subway, and there was like a little girl who's really excited about it, like just wanted to sit there and listen, but the mom was like, leave the homeless man alone, basically, and dragged her away.
Yeah.
And that turned out to be Yo-Yo Ma, and he was just doing it for fun. And then he walked off the train in a station, went on to a fully packed theater where people were paying thousands of dollars to be there. And I think that's just really interesting how like
I know. They
yeah.
did Joshua Bell, right? And Yo-Yo Ma. Yeah, this was
Yeah.
with both of them. Yeah.
I think there's like a art and a skill to just like staying present and appreciating things no matter where it is. And I think stories like that help you see that
Yeah,
how the
and
importance of it.
going back to Einstein, when you mentioned, he played violin to kind of get back to being present in a way. It's a form of meditation too.
Mhm.
You play an instrument, if you're doing it, if you're really doing it, this is all you are doing right now at that moment. So it's fully being present, fully being engaged, and it's kind of connecting to everything else, right? So when you get back to then doing other things or trying to be creative in another aspect, you're in the zone. So I think that's kind of important to me too, and I do that sometimes. I'm not comparing myself by any means, but I will do that.
Yeah.
If I'm, and it's a form of meditation. I can't sit still, but I can play music.
Yeah.
So
Well, as long as you get it somewhere, right? But yeah, so
exactly.
so the question is, what books or movies do you recommend for people to check out?
Well, you mentioned Whiplash. It would be an interesting thing, I think, for people to see. There's a good documentary on Bill Evans. I think it's called Bill Evans.
That's easy.
And there's a good documentary on Miles Davis.
Hmm.
And I think it's called Miles Davis or something like that.
Wow,
I think both
they're
of them
well
are on
named.
Netflix or what's the one with Miles? It's a new one that came out like a year ago or so. And it's interesting to see because it deals with some of the, you can actually see what the life of a musician looks like and what hardships they went through, especially with Miles, and racism and everything that was going on in his life. And then you see, some of that genius behind these people who were able to give so much in terms of music to the society. Because when you think of them as musicians, I like to think of, and myself included, I don't see music as something that I take, I see it as something that I give. So when I look at them, it's like, wow, how much did they give to all of us, and that we don't even know yet. And so you look at these movies and they're very inspirational. I think those two are really, really good to check out.
Awesome. I'm definitely going to. I've been trying to get more documentaries in me. So I know very little about jazz, so it sounds like a good
Yeah.
place to start.
And what was that movie? I remember telling you about it. It was interesting because you're into bees. Do you remember the one that I
I
was
remember us
telling you about?
talking about it. I don't remember the name of
Yeah, I
it.
don't remember the
If you
name of
just
the movie now.
it'll come to me like 5 minutes from now. Like when we're like,
yeah, exactly. Same here.
All right. So then what is a problem you were having that you love people's help with? It can be
Well,
anything.
I think I'm at the stage. Well, I have a lot of problems, but but I'm at the point where I think I would like to help more than asking for help. Of course, when what I mean by that is that I'm trying to see like how can I use the work that I do to give to people through healthcare projects. Of course, we are able to do them because they make sense financially and so forth. But there's a path that you can choose that makes sense financially and gives value. And this is what I want to do. So now on that same level of healthcare, I've been starting to talk to people and seeing how much value I get just from being able to, share what I know and perhaps contribute to somebody else's project, just for the sake of helping. So, I like doing that. Now, what can other people help me? I guess it's the same thing. If, I feel like I learn something from everybody that I talk to that has a similar passion or mission, just like yourself or the group that we've, talked with, you know, I feel like I gain a lot from it. So just being a part of it for me is enough in terms of, you know, getting help, because really you're connecting with like-minded individuals who share a passion, and it reinforces the idea that the direction I'm going is the direction that I want to be in, and it has value. So there's nothing specific, but being a part of a community, I guess that's has the same goal, is really what I would like to be involved in, and haven't that much involved in the past.
So if anyone listening is a part of a community group, online meetup, even if it's just a regional one, I'm sure eventually you'll be traveling.
Yeah.
Reach out and let them know, because
Mhm.
it's a simple thing, but we all want to come together. All right. So then the last question I have for you is a question. What is a question that you have that is unanswered? Like you don't have the answer for it. To give you some time to think, a question I've been wondering. So I don't know if you're familiar with the Fermi paradox, or like the Fermi equation, I think is what it's called, where it's like, it basically says that like, there should be lots of life out in the universe. And I've been wondering, like, what would be the inverse of that? Like, what would equation look like where we were the only ones to pop out? Like the math works out like there should be tons and tons and tons, but like if the universe is infinite and there's so much stuff out there, what would the equation look like? And how horrific would it be if the only sentient life like us was us? You know, like that's my question. But it doesn't have to be like that. It could be like what do buffaloes think about it. But what's the question?
What's the probability of that even?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, what would be like? What's the
Yeah.
what's the probability? What's the equation? And I want to see it. But so if anyone mathematicians out there, please contact me, because this does actually bother me. But like, so what is the question? And it can be something you think about. It could be something you come back to that you just don't have the answer to. That you can ponder it. Maybe someone listening can help you with.
Yeah. That's a deep one. Now you're making me think of something like really, really grand.
It can be small.
Well, I guess going into a near future, I wonder how human civilization is going to look like in, let's say, 1,000 years. Where are we going to be? Because I'm not so sure that we're going to be here anymore. And let's say 1,000 years from now, how will that actually transpire? Because we all watched Star Wars when we were kids, the only that's kind of like your concept, but it might not look exactly like that, right? So how will human life and human civilization look like 100 or 500 or 1,000 years from now? And I have the neighborhood where I live actually has quite a few NASA scientists, and a good friend of mine works at NASA. So some of the things that they work on are absolutely fascinating to me. Such as a space shield, shielding from space radiation, or even some antimatter, matter, propulsion and stuff like that. I mean, it's just crazy things that humanity hasn't thought of yet, but ultimately leads to the question as like, where are we going to move as a civilization? So obviously there's no answer to that question. Your question is more solvable, I guess, than this one. But
yours
that's
is
something I've
solvable
been
with time.
thinking about.
Yours is solvable with time.
Yeah, but not for me. But
Discover time travel or something.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, who knows, right? I mean, I'm just fascinated by space to some degree, and at some point I was thinking about a degree in physics as well, and so this has fascinated me for a while to really explore the paradigms that, in our ways of thinking, the limited ways of thinking that we have even right now, and how we interpret the universe in our life and in the universe. So anyway, yeah, I'd like to know what some of the theories and I guess, what other people think. I clearly see us having to move beyond Earth in some not so distant, perhaps, future, depending on what happens here.
Sweet.
So,
I will
yeah.
stop the recording.
I also have another question.
Oh, okay. I won't stop the recording.
One more. This goes back to high school. Can bumblebees, because bumblebees, from what I remember, were supposedly on the level of physics shouldn't be able to fly.
Yeah, they're weird.
Because of the size of their wings and the frequency of the motion, like technically, and their weight, right? They shouldn't be able to fly, but they do. And I was going to do some kind of experiment to measure that, and never ended up doing it. So if anybody really knows something, more on that would be kind of cool.
All right, and it's always really good to like say a really bad theory for it, because that usually galvanizes the person with the answer to write in. So my theory is that it's a combination of their little wings, their body, and then they basically glide. They use the wind. Like, you ever notice they kind of like go with the wind a little bit. So their wings are almost like gliders too. And then space aliens come down and like poke them with telekinesis. So like, whoever actually has the answer should write us in, or else that's what we're going with.
Yeah.
Gliding space aliens.
I think gliding might have to do with it, actually, now that I think of it, because that even I'm not sure which birds, is it pelicans or albatrosses, that they're studying right now, because they fly in a certain formation. That the aerodynamics, the way the wind goes from one to another, lets the birds glide and use far less energy. So they're thinking of flying commercial aircraft in formation like that, military aircraft in specific formation, to conserve fuel. So maybe that, I don't know, maybe that has something to do with it. But I think it's a good guess. So we'll see. What the truth is.
The person with the real answer, who ideas should write in.
All right, cool.
Thank you for joining us today with the Learn with Lowell show. Check us out at learnwithlowell.com. Anywhere podcasts can be found. Subscribe. Tell me what you thought of this episode. Check us out on YouTube in particular. That's a new thing I'm doing. Timestamps and links are in the show notes. Thank you for coming, and I hope every one of you found something today that you're curious about to learn more about, and you'll go out and be curious and learn something new. Thank you, and have a great rest of your day.